of victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Penasini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Alrighty, make sure I unmute myself. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a live edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. How is everyone doing in chat? See, it's been popping off while we've been in the waiting room. As always, I'm John, your host, also known as 4020. Joining me is my good mate Sixties, the big fella Craig, and the Eels. Well, they've kicked themselves clear of the bottom of the ladder and they kept themselves in the hunt for the top 8. What a gutsy game it was, Sixties. It wasn't the prettiest at all times. Certainly there were some errors, but the Eels, they found a way. And I think that's been the underlying message for the last 2 months now, is the Eels are getting closer and closer to finding a way. And today they got it done.
You'll have to excuse me, John. I'm just going to have a drink now because the throat's a bit hoarse from yelling at a certain Jerry Sutton.
Oh, couldn't buy a whistle in the first 20 minutes at the very minimum, and then yeah.
John, I've decided that we are Jerry Sutton's Tinder date, and you can work out why, right? Because he likes to do it. He likes to give it to us.
Yeah.
He likes to give it to us every time we're playing under him. Oh, mate. Listen to this, right? 5 penalties to 1. 4 ruck infringements to 0. And that's beside the myriad of 50-50 calls and the calls that he got wrong.
Yeah, it had to be challenged. Yeah.
Like, honestly, as you said, couldn't buy a call. Like the start of the game, the Titans were literally pushing it for all it was worth in terms of, how long they could lay in the ruck and be offside and what have you. The small crowd of 8,000, that's a shitty time to put on a game of rugby league
Sunday,
in the middle
6:15 in the middle of winter. Yep.
Sunday, 6:15. Like, come on.
Yeah. You're better off going at 11 a.m. in the morning than you are at 6:15. But because the ratings, that's how it works. But
and look, it was a disappointing turnout of 8,000. I think we can be better than that, Eels fans. Like, I know it was a shitty time, and I understand people, not wanting to be out there at that time on a Sunday night. But come on, let's get behind the team. Anyway, look, I just couldn't fathom some of the calls out there tonight. But look, let's put that aside. First half, how many tries did we leave out on the park? Seriously, like, if we were finding a way to bomb something, we could. What was said tonight, John, in our little group, was the Eels were doing some of the complex things really well and the simple things really, really poorly. And as you know, I was concerned before the game about us playing touch footy against the Titans. And I sent you that message at halftime, like, we're playing touch footy, John. Like,
we were playing into the strengths of the Titans and yet still somehow found a way to overcome it, which is impressive. I mean, it is frustrating, but it is impressive. And, wow. The amount of opportunities we spotted the Titans to score, and then you go look at our stats, 60s, and I know we do a stats breakdown every time, but just our effective tackle rate was over 92%, given how much we had to do on the goal line, how much extra ball we spotted the Titans. I know that we came out ahead in possession and time of possession, but in crucial flows of possession, the Titans were given huge opportunities to make inroads at the Parramatta Eels. And the reality is they scored an intercept try, which was unlike that's just the way the game goes. Sometimes you only got it wrong in an otherwise spectacular individual game. And they scored a try where there was confusion in the defensive line, and I felt like, was Joey Lussick caught out offside because he sort of put his hands up but wasn't impeded? And they were the two, and I know that the opening try was pretty soft too, but they were the two sort of against the run of play tries they scored. and they didn't really offer that much.
Yeah. John, I guess what I can say is, look, I enjoy a win once the wins happen.
Yeah,
early in the second half,
the journey.
I was not enjoying myself. I was not enjoying myself. You know, I don't know what I wish for, John. Like I'd said to people before the game, like I tipped a 16-point win, right? But I said to people before the game, oh, it'll probably be close, and I'll take a win of any score. No, I wouldn't. I wanted that 16-point win, and I wanted to be sitting comfortable all the way through it. I just need that at the moment. I need
the last
to be
5 minutes of the game to finally, to check out there. The Eels couldn't shut the door on the Titans, even though for huge stretches of that game, we're sitting there for 2-point lead, and it felt like we were a 2 or 3 try better team, like you said, in terms of those tries that were left on the field. We were dominating the Titans. They had a couple of passages of play against the run where they got onto the scoreboard, but the Eels, without Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown, they took control of this game. And while Dean Hawkins didn't always take the right option in that frustrating passage of play you were mentioning to, he stuck at it. I thought that Joash Papali'i did a great job not trying to force himself into the game and try and press to impress the coach. And the forwards did their job. I don't think there were too many bad efforts in the forwards. The one player that I think you can point to with a couple of errors was Kelma Tuolangi. But to his credit, for every error, there was actually a moment of redemption where he bounced back and forced an error or created an attacking opportunity to make up for the laps that he had prior. So, really, like I said, not the prettiest game, 60s, and certainly a tense one until the final 5 or so minutes where the Eels did manage to finally shut out the Titans. But this is still part of that blueprint that we're seeing under Jason Ryles, and the willingness to roll up their sleeves and do tough work. And if you make those errors, because clearly Ryles is letting them play football, like they are throwing the ball around, they're taking some aggressive opportunities, but they're also turning it around when they make the mistakes. And by and large, and certainly we saw with the Bulldogs 2 weeks ago, that it can reach a breaking point with the amount of possession when you gift it too much, but they are making their defensive reads, their defensive tackles on the back of those errors. Yeah.
What is it that's one of the main pillars for Jason Ryles with the team is to fight?
Yes, and we're seeing that 100%. 100%.
Yeah. It's been outstanding to see that. It's like, apart from those first couple of games at the start of the season, and of course that horror last game up in Darwin, what we're seeing from the Eels this year is that a lot more resilience and just a lot of effort and fight throughout the game. And we know that there's errors there that are coming in. It's frustrating at times, and there's tries that are left out on the field. You have to think we're probably the elimination of 2 or 3 errors away from being a really, really good football team. Like a really, really good football team. And maybe a recruit or two. And
we are 2 or 3 errors, like you said, away from being the team that's knocking on the door of not the top 8, the top 4. Like that is how close the margins are this year in the NRL. We're on 14 points after that win, I believe. The Warriors sit in 4th on 24 points. The Broncos are in 5th with 18 points. Like that is how close things are and how fast the Eels are progressing. That even though the wins and losses have been sort of chalked up at the wrong rates up until this point now, that you can see the progression in the field. And the way the players are talking 60s, the way they're rolling up their sleeves, the belief that is in the squad now is genuinely impressive.
Yeah, so I gather 5th to 8th are all on 18 points, are they?
I'm just hoping that, I believe that 5th is now 18 points, and then 8th is 17 because the Panthers have that draw against the Cowboys, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we are 2 wins outside that bracket right now.
Yeah, it makes you realise how important that Panthers game was.
That is definitely going to be one of the games at the end of the season you're going to look back and say, critical juncture, what happened sliding doors. But unfortunately, the reality is we got the Penrith Panthers at their premiership best. Like they upset the Warriors yesterday with their Origin players rested. They played probably 2/3, 3/4 as well as they did against us. They were phenomenal against us. And
yeah,
we
absolutely. Yep. John, before we go any further, again, some of the housekeeping we didn't do at the start.
Probably should mention the
shout
sponsors.
out to our sponsors. Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, where we were earlier this afternoon with our preview appearance in Sturlo's. Also, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta, the OG sponsor for the Cumberland Throw. Also, thank you to everyone that's come up over this weekend and introduced themselves and said hello. It's been overwhelming. Between yesterday and today, no exaggeration, I've probably had, I don't know, at least 24 people that I hadn't met before that came up and introduced themselves, either up at Kellyville or at the Leagues Club or outside the Leagues Club or at the ground. It was just, and you know what? Where I'm embarrassed is that I can't remember everyone's name, but we had people come down from Queensland.
Hardly on from chat there, introduced himself. We had Titus and his dad at Sturlo's. Yeah, and then that was just for me and you. Then you got accosted on the way to the stadium, mate.
Probably about half a dozen different people that introduced themselves there, and then after the game, and there was, now I'm trying to get the name right. Is it? I think, and I apologise. I think it was Brenton and his partner from Wollongong. And again, my apologies if I've got names wrong. I can't remember names, but it was just one of those weekends, and we love it because it's always great to have a new face that we get to meet, and people that come up who share the passion for the Parramatta Eels. And when they say they enjoy listening to the podcast, man, that means a lot to us. It means that shared passion is resonating with people out there. And as I said, we really do appreciate it. And we do our best to remember everyone's names, but it starts to look. I've got an excuse, Don. You got no excuse, mate. You're a young bloke.
I'm
an old
family, mate.
Right?
Yeah,
so I can just go, I have a hold. I can't remember.
My brain's good for remembering the most random, esoteric, useless information that I'll just call up on a whim. And then,
but anyway, who have we got in the chat tonight?
Yeah, all the usuals are here. Geez, you guys have been talking a lot. I'm scrolling up multiple screens, starting off Jamie, Eminem, Rachel. Good to see Rachel there. Chris Fairburn, another regular. Manise 23. Good to have you in there, mate. Mike Fleet, Jamie, I already mentioned. So you get two shout-outs there. Scott Whitney, another regular. Chris Hill, had some good banter there early. Carl Vendrasco, sorry, got to remember the and Sinkers. Yep. Sandy Hunter, Badman, Peter Zed, Ritzy the King. So, yeah, we got chat going very well right now. Everyone enjoying the win. Some things that people, sort of, not nitpicking is the wrong word, but sort of some finer minutiae being sifted through as we look at where the Eels got it right and got it wrong in there. But, yeah, the vibes are pretty good right now, although some concerns about suspensions I see in chat, and that is a fair talking point out of this one. There is at least one player in the centres that could be, unfortunately, on the back of probably his best game of the season, maybe sitting out a week. But we have to wait and see because it is an absolute crapshoot for the MRC. They might say fine will be enough, but I think Will's probably looking at 1 to 2 weeks for that dangerous throw on, was it Bo Fermor? Who was it, guys? I can't remember, but dangerous throw they'll probably charge him with there.
Yeah. And by the way, we won't see Ben and Fletch there because they've got that drive to the Central Coast from the stadium, and saw them after the game. So, look, it's unfortunate. As you said, that was probably Will's best game, especially that second half. His performance
really came to life in the second half. He had some good moments in the first half, getting back for those kick returns and opening up some crossfield opportunities between Iongi, Lomax, and himself. But second half, he came to life. Some really strong defense. I know we just talked about the dangerous throw, but there was some great one-on-one tackles out wide and some really good work backing up to get a couple of scoring opportunities.
And that now begs the question, who comes in? Is it a fait accompli that will be Jordan Samrani that will come into the centres?
I assume that Jordan was nicked up this week, Craig, hence why he was a late scratch, and Charlie Guyman came into the team, who did a good job, by the way. Well done, Charlie. Scored a try. I think he's first for the NRL. But if Jordan is good to go, like you said, a fait accompli, that he would come in there and take over at centre because he's done the job there prior this year. And I think the backline stocks are pretty barren right now because if it's not him, what are you talking about? Samuel Luizu? Who was available in the Cup today? They won. Well done to the Cup, by the way. Comeback victory against the Newcastle Knights. But their backline is Upper Twiddle, Liam Scolari, Raz Namva, Bo Newlands, and Samuel Luizu. Yeah, it's going to be Jordan Samrani. Maybe Joash Papali, I guess, if you get Dylan.
Well, here's the thought.
I think there might be a returning player going into the centres. Is that what you're going to suggest?
Yeah. I just wonder whether Jason Ryles would be tempted to play Dylan Brown in the centres and keeping the halves pairing the same today. It's a thought, but I'm thinking that he will probably lean towards Jordan Samrani unless there is an injury issue. Was there any feedback on Riley Smith's injury?
A laceration on top of his knee. It was just a nasty cut that they couldn't get patched up on the field, and I think it was causing him some issues in terms of pain. But I imagine with some stitches and maybe some magic glue, they'll get him. I assume he'll be in the mix, but you never know. Could get an infection. Might be too big to play, but I would assume he's good to go.
Yeah. What day do we play next week?
I saw I think Dean Hawkins was saying it's a short turnaround. Parramatta
So you'd
Eels
assume a Saturday because we haven't got we haven't got any 5-day turnarounds this year from memory. Okay, so let's get into some of the talking points from today. We've talked about the officiating, which, in all honesty, John, this felt like the second time that we were getting screwed by Sutton. Now we can move past that because we've won the game.
It's easy to move past when you win, but at the same time, it's almost like the wins where you need the hammer at home because you look like a sore loser when you grumble about officiating after a loss. But, man, we cop it. Like, we copped against the Bulldogs, we copped against the Titans. If you're copping against the best and worst teams in ladder positions on the competition, where's the middle ground?
Yeah, because it's not as if the Titans were a wonderfully disciplined team out there. And there were plenty of times that I thought they were caught out a number of times at the ruck.
Yeah, definitely. When Riley Smith lost the ball, quote unquote, lost the ball, he definitely caught someone out offside, and it wasn't caught. And we is that the one we challenged and lost? No, I think we just copped that.
No. We just copped that one.
There was another strip that we challenged and lost after 2 successful challenges. So not a bad day at the office for the captain's challenge, but there was a number of times where we attacked the ruck, and there was a leg pull on Josh Adokar after a half break as well in the first half, which was a blatant 6 again, it was play on. There was a high tackle on I think Sean Russell in the first half where he was like bemused that he didn't get the call. There was a litany of them. So let's not run over it with a forensic audit here because we'll be there all night.
Yep. But let's talk about some positives still from the stats because looking at the one that stood out for me was the effective tackles, like 92.14.
Very, very clean, yeah. To be at that level with the amount of opportunities that we handed to the Titans is very impressive. And it speaks to something that we've been talking about in the podcast where while the Eels have conceded tries here and there in the last 2 months, from a structural point of view, if you go look at the tape, consistently the Eels are putting themselves in positions to succeed defensively, coming down to your actual execution man-to-man, out wide. But the coaching staff really deserve a tip of the hat here. And I don't know if there's a specific defensive coach, Sixties, because I think it's a bit of a combined arms approach right now with the coaching staff. But whether it's Sam Moller or Nathan Brown or the head coach himself, the big man Rylesy, I don't know who you want to sort of nominate as the prime tutor or teacher there, but they've done a fantastic job. The Eels structurally are in such a healthy place of how they approach their defense now.
John, I also want to mention the Fox. I couldn't get out at the game. I wasn't allowed to speak about the Fox because I started saying something about him that I'm going to say in the podcast. All that got out of my mouth was the Fox, and then he got injured, and then Clint was just all over that. He's like, when are you going to learn to not talk about players, Craig? When are you going to learn?
Legendary mockers.
the mock, was so. Yeah, it was literally. I what I wanted to say was, I thought that the Fox played really, really tough today. I mean, we know he offers in terms of
raw pace and electric scoring ability. Exactly.
All of that.
You talk about the Eels rolling up their sleeves. He typified that.
220 run meters, and it wasn't as if he was given space to work in today.
No line breaks.
That was all tough, hard, dirty meters that he made. The man was just all courage today, I thought. And, of course, not far behind him, even though it was a different style of game that he played, Zach Lomax, things were happening around him today. It was just that kick chase that he was putting in all day, the pressure that he was putting on. And, of course, we were able to score from it. But
one spectacular catch that led to the first Will Penasini try.
Yes, absolutely. So I thought both of our wingers were absolutely outstanding. But what I wanted to also point out, and I don't know if it came across on the coverage, was we looked like we were losing our way early-ish in the second half, and it might have been after Kelma threw an intercept
off the 20-minute restart,
and we just weren't able to seemingly able to get out of our own half. And I think there was an injury break, there was some sort of break, and the Fox ran in and called everyone around.
The players only meeting it with the penalty, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it was, I mean, he was the one that seemed to be instigating, laying down the law, I guess, about pulling the head in. Let's just get focused here, because we created a lot of opportunities, but then there were probably times where we just needed to settle just a bit. And I guess that's a hard one to differentiate about. You don't want the team to go into their shell, but you also don't want them to push a pass that's not on. And I think some of those errors were just there where it was, it was a borderline decision about whether the pass was on or not. Could they have created an opportunity? Just so, as I said, we just feel like we're just so close to being a really, really good team. A really, really good team. Those two or three errors that maybe if they weren't made, get us there either get us home in some of those close games or make some of the other games just a little bit more comfortable. How did we miss that first try scoring opportunity? Because it was almost a 12-point turnaround where the bat back came from Zach Lomax. Then it seemed did Will try to bat it back as well, and then Kelma just couldn't get his hands and feet anywhere near the ball? Was that because watching it live, it just looked like it wouldn't fall for us, and of course they ended up going down the other end of the field and scoring their first try right on the back of that. It was
that mean last bounce for Kelma, wasn't it, where he just had that comical he dove, but like non-touchdown of the ball. Yeah, that was a 12-point turnaround because that led to a penalty, to a 6 again, to Jamin Jolliffe, wasn't it, crashing over. So, yeah, that was one of those bizarre 12-point turnarounds. Don't see those sorts too often. Usually it's on the back of some other stuff like intercepts or whatnot. But, yeah, that was a comical way to start the game. And classic Parramatta Eels don't like starting with the scoreboard in their favour. But, yeah, they found a way today. They were... that was a game where, with the way they started, with that 12-point turnaround, with the way that they fell into that trap of playing the overly expansive football against the Gold Coast Titans, it had all the makings for heartbreak. But yeah, like you said, I think that players-only meeting in the second half with Josh Adokar, and the commentators was a bit sort of puzzled by why the Eels were calling the meeting and how they were being exposed to a quick tap restart from the Titans. But it helped, didn't it? Because from there, Kelma Tuolangi, after making that intercept pressured Kieran Foran on the last, got the error out of him as he tried to adjust for a kick, and they didn't look back after that. And while it took them a bit to take control of the game on the scoreboard and put the Titans beyond doubt there, they certainly got back to an identity after that point, didn't they? They found a structure, they found a tempo, they took the game away from the Titans on the back of that.
Yeah, and whilst we get people to start thinking about their 3-2-1s, have we got any questions from the chat or comments?
We were doing some tech support on the fly. We have Rugby League History in chat singing as always. Good to have him in there, mate. Always sweet to have you in here with the tunes after a win. We got a bit of talk about Gideon Katonga or Gideon Katonga 60s, who also had a great game. What was that? Nearly 190 metres, nearly 100 post-contact metres there.
What about that run that he made that set up the try that I think was scored by Dean Hawkins?
Yeah, the pass back to Dylan Walker, the deftness of that pass was surprising, but he's showing a pretty balanced set of skills. And a lot of chat was talking about how once he gets that offload worked out on a consistent basis, he's going to be an absolute weapon down that left edge. And I agree, he is not the finished product, but you're seeing some nuance to his line running. I thought he actually had a really good rapport with Joash Papali'i, considering that they had just the bye to train down that left edge with. But outside of that one comically large forward pass from Joash that was missed by the touchy, who was right in line, by the way, I thought that their timing and how flat and aggressive they were playing really punished the Titans, and there was a good 1-2 punch there.
Yeah, if we think back to the start of the season, and there was a lot of calls for Gideon to be dropped.
Was it John Muggleton who we had on the pre-game show?
Yes. Yeah, John was the one that said, no, there's a player there. You keep him in there in first grade. Let him learn in first grade because he's a player. He's going to be a player.
And it was that game where I think he turned, like the former Gideon turned, actually. And I'm not going to say he's been lights out since, but you saw him take that step. And while there is an error in his game, we saw him have one loose carry today. He is making a difference down that left edge and in a position where the Eels have a real need. And I know a lot of talk about recruitment has been focused on the edges as well as on the middle, alongside that obviously vacant number 6 spot now. But Gideon is helping Jason Ryles in a good way sort of solve that dilemma on the edges. And yeah, there was also some talk about Riley Smith's near 40-20. Doesn't get much closer. That was a 40-20 point, maybe 1.5. I think that was about 15 centimetres off the 20-metre line there. That was the right call was made, but geez, it was frustrating. I was just going, that is so typical Parramatta. Like, he strikes that sweet. The ball just takes that mean bounce and doesn't kick fully towards the 20-metre mark. But yeah, good moment from Riley there, kicking early in the tackle count, but just centimetres from getting it right.
Yeah, so I'm looking at some of the other efforts in the just in the pure stats returns. Junior Paulo today. Now he's been credited with 139 run meters, 48 post contact. I think he went unchanged, didn't he? Till
he went to 55 minutes in, I think.
Yeah.
He was pulling the Titans apart through the ruck. Between his hard runs and his ability to generate the second phase, there was that sequence before half time where he nearly got Riley Smith over.
Yes.
But just some phenomenal play. We had him tagged as one of the key players for the Parramatta Eels in this game. We needed them to be able to win the ruck, and Junior went out there on a mission. And look, we joked about the matchup head-to-head between he and Reg, and we saw in that pre-game show today in Jack's Sterlo's, we talked about Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris having that big tussle yesterday between the Panthers and the Warriors. I mean, Junior, that was as close to a knockout punch you would get in the head-to-head between him and Reg today. He played his former running mate off the park and was a critical component in how the Parramatta Eels won today. Huge minutes, huge impact from the big man in a game where they desperately needed him to stand up.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask the next question, and maybe there might be some comments in chat that come in as a result of this. The other player that we said we needed to see a big game from today was Jermaine Hopgood. And I thought, in particular, his first stint was really, really solid. I would argue today might have been his best game of the season.
It's close to. There was one other game earlier this year. Was it? I'm trying to think. Where I credited him for being able to allow Ryles to inject Dylan Walker into the game later because of a strong opening stint, and I felt like that helped with the flow of that contest. But tonight, it wasn't sexy, but he got the job done. 60s, 90 meters, 33 tackles, 1 missed. Just more decisiveness too. There's been a huge amount of indecision in how he's played the game in recent weeks, and it's been leading to errors and to bad tempo for his teammates in terms of poor passes that put them under pressure. And tonight, like I said, not sexy, but just really solid fundamental work. Went out there, carried the ball with a bit of intent, made his tackles, and yeah, it adds that much more to the ruck when you have a player like Junior who can be your lead guy, be the alpha dog. If he gets that sort of backup from Jermaine, it changes the complexion of the ruck.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack Williams, 40 tackles.
Yeah, and a really nice involvement in that try down the left edge with that sequence from Penasini to he and end up going out wide to Sean Russell, right, with the absurd Iongi Harbour Bridge pass. Yeah.
Yes.
Look,
I thought it was, really a really strong performance from him. The other one that I found interesting, and his stats don't jump out off the page, but it was just, I'm going to call it a Castle comment, right? It was the vibe about how he played tonight. I thought Charlie Guymer played really tough as well.
Charlie came into the game because Kelmer got concussed. Nasty little incident where Kelmer's arms were trapped in the tackle, went face first into the dirt. I would argue he's been banging on the door for a few weeks. He's been very good in Cup, playing both on the edge and at lock forward.
It feels like his game's changed a little bit. I feel like he's become a little bit more physical. Maybe I don't know if the word mongrel is the right application there, but I feel like he's just added an extra level of physicality to his game. And I think during the game, there was a tackle that he made, and Clint just said, Charlie's the axe. He's the axe tonight. I can't remember who it was that he chopped down, but I was just really, really impressed with.
Got close to 100 metres from 10 carries, scored that try by following through on the kick chase and AJ Brimson making a meal of it. 21 tackles, couple missed. That's a great slate of work there off the interchange. And Matty, our good mate in chat, there's shouted out Sean Russell, who continues to build on his best season in the NRL 60s. And I do want to shout out Sean Russell because while he had a good game in terms of his rucking and defensive involvement, if you go look at that there, he's got 122 metres from 12 carries, 4 tackle breaks. Will Penson had 5 tackle breaks, sorry. Really good work there. Defensively got through 18 tackles at centre, just missing just the 1. But the big moment for me was the effort on the Alafiana Khan-Pereira intercept. He saved the Parramatta Eels 2 points at a time where the scoreboard ended up 18-16 at half-time by forcing Khan-Pereira out wide. I know that Jaden Campbell's injury contributed to the goal-kicking issues there with Beau Fermor. The milkman, by the way, Beau Fermor, loving to stay down for a whistle there, pulling the ball to the left. But, yeah, the effort from the other side of the field on the intercept to save 2 points, well done. And Sean Russell having a really good year.
That should not be understated, that effort, because you need players to stay in the contest. You need players to chase, even if it looks like the chase is going to be futile, because you never know what could happen. A player, we've seen it before, a player can trip over their own feet as they're running away. A player could suddenly be hit by cramp or could pull a hammy
you keep yourself in the contest and you can make things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this instance, as you said, he was able to keep Khan-Pereira out wide. It led to a missed conversion. And who knows, it could have come down to it being a 2-point game tonight. And if it had come down to being a 2-point game, you would point to that moment and say, without that chase, that he gets 6 points. Because I was looking at it and I was thinking, okay, Khan-Pereira's coasting now, but Sean Russell was making ground coming across on a diagonal run, and he made it a little bit uncomfortable for Khan-Pereira. He looked like, Khan-Pereira at full pelt, you back him every day of the week, and you probably back him to be able to run around and go under the sticks. But that effort play from Sean Russell prevented that from happening. And to me, that absolutely saved 2 points. at that moment. So
Drew Peacock's calling for perspective on our, I wouldn't say exuberant celebrations. Look, we know, Drew. We're not out here saying that we're winning the premiership, but this win
we're enjoying a win.
Yeah, we're enjoying a win. And as we've alluded to in other podcasts, this isn't about the singular result here. It's about the cumulative 2-month effort that we're seeing from the Parramatta Eels, where they've been highly competitive against the Bulldogs, against Manly, against any number of teams, whether it's the Titans or beyond. And yeah, we fully acknowledge that we're nowhere near the finished product. And the reality is we're not going to – we don't finish inside the 8. I'm not going to say we're not going to finish inside the 8 because if we keep winning, it's not that far off. But yeah, we understand the perspective. We're not going to tell you that go buy your premiership tickets.
I think one of my first statements about tonight was it was not a game I was enjoying until well into the second half.
The Titans had more personnel available than Parramatta. The Titans were coming off their best win of the season against Manly. So, it's the Gold Coast Titans, but we got them as good as they're going to be this year.
Yeah, and what do we say? No Brett, no Moses, no Brown, no worries.
Apparently, because increasingly it's looking like they're the ones holding the Eels back. Look, I see in chat a lot of people talking about we don't need Dylan, and Dylan's been coasting since 22.
Oh no. Let's have perspective on that. Yeah.
I think it's not unfair to suggest that Dylan hasn't reached the peak that we're hoping for post 22. I think that's a different conversation. But yeah, I don't think he's coasting, man. Where he plays moving forward is going to be interesting. Mitchie's on board with you, 60s. He came in asking, would we like to see Dylan in the centres? And that's something you suggested earlier this podcast. And it could be a bit of a watch this space moment, depending on how much Ryles wants to invest in Joash right now. But it's pretty clear that he wants to have Papa Lee in the team for good reason. He's just a footballer, isn't he? And yeah, we got some exciting times ahead, even though it's going to be frustrating with the amount of unavailable players we have. But keeping Joash in that team, whether it's starting or in the interchange, it's something to consider.
I wish people wouldn't remind me that Dylan Brown's going, because I'm not going to enjoy watching him run around in a Newcastle jersey for 10 years.
Yeah, it's not the most offensive jersey you could pull on when you think about that mental picture. There's certainly some, he'd look dirty in a tricolour jersey, in a Roosters jersey. But yeah, it's look, Newcastle fans will probably feel a little bit better now that he's being closer to his not best form, but to good form. But it doesn't solve the problem they have in the halves. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're almost at the point, John, of doing the 3-2-1. We've got to celebrate. We've got to enjoy. We're probably hitting up around the 40-minute mark for this podcast. It's instant reaction. We like to, jump in there, give our thoughts on what's just happened. But I think we're at the pointy end of the podcast. So what's the consensus there with the 3-2-1? Have we got enough votes in there just to see what people think?
But you guys have been talking so much. I mean, I'm not complaining, but there's a lot of chat going on. I see Damien going for Yongi, Hawkins, and Katonga 3-2-1. What do we got here? I'm going to keep scrolling. Gallagher, Hawkins, Lomax, Josh Adokar. So leaving Iongi out, but I mean, Hawkins, Lomax, and Adokar all very worthy. Dave Lander says Iongi, Hawkins, and he's got the general 1 point to any number of players because it was a good team effort to get the W. Keep scrolling up, trying to find more votes because you guys were voting early on.
And if you haven't voted, put it in now so John can see it as well.
I'll come back down to live chat, and I'm going all the way back up because I remember there were 3-2-1s early on. Maybe I'm overestimating my ability to remember.
Well, you can't remember a name, can you?
No, there's Damien's again. I mean, there's been good chatter about other positions for Dylan Brown. We talked about the centres, but there's also been some discourse about him at lock forward, which is a position that I could see him transitioning to later in his career, 60s, given his ability to defend with a bit of rugged want-to and being a plus playmaker at 13 as opposed to being a more limited playmaker at 7.
He could play like Dylan Walker, in all honesty.
Yeah. That is actually, I mean, there's your comp right there, isn't it? Literally the same, bearing the same name, Dylan Walker, Dylan Brown. Yeah. I always thought that Dylan would have made a pretty handy fullback too, going back in the day with his ability to stretch out wide, with his pace, and being more of a primary ball runner than a ball distributor. But that's...
I have the feeling it might have been something that Brad Arthur was toying with in his mind.
Yeah, at the back end of 23, maybe it was, where he played that one game against Penrith. Carl Vendrasco says junior 3, Lomax 2, Adokar 1. Fred Rankin going for Iyongi for the max points. Gideon Katonga 2, Dean Hawkins 1. Jamie going for Iyongi 3, Lomax 2. Footy Dean, the 1 point. We got Dingus Boy, good name. Iyongi 3, Lomax 2, Junior Barlaw 1. Good mate Josh Randall in chat. Iyongi 3, Hawkins 2, Lomax 1. Iyongi 3, Footy Dean 2, Barlaw 1 from Sinkers. Ben Johnson, so he was in chat before 60s. He's been watching the stream. Good on him. Footy Dean, Zach Lomax, and the Fox 321. Dave Lander, Iyongi 3, Dean Hawkins 2, Lomax 1. Seeing a lot of consistency here now. Peter Z 321 to the Eels supporters that turned up. Well said, mate. That's a fair point. Something that Sixties was hammering home.
Yes.
David Calgaro going for Hawkins 3, Lomax 2, I think. Barlaw 1. And Mitchy's talking about halves. So, Mitch, you got a 3-1 for us, mate? I want to hear it from the big man. I'll wait for him there. Drew Peacock going Hawkins, Iyongi, Lomax. He hasn't listed the points, but I assume that's 3-2-1, which again is be in line of what Chad has been saying. So yeah, Hawkins, Lomax, Iyongi, very popular. Josh Adokar, Dean. I mentioned Hawkins. Josh Adokar also turning up there. Junior Barlaw. So we've got about 5 or 6 players, 60s, that are pretty consensus points winners. And probably among the players, Gideon Katonga was another one that turned up as well. It's Fletch. Good man. Yeah, Dad's driving. So there you go. So that
I was going to say,
that was
he's doing an outstanding job.
that was your 3-2-1 then, was it, Fletch? Footy Dean, Lomax, Fox? Because solid picks if that's the case, mate. He also had a question for us I'll get to after. Because he's dreaming big and I like it.
Well, okay, John, let's go our 3-2-1s and then we'll go to that question. So, John, who's your 3-2-1?
Well, Joel with late pick here, Hawkins, Iyongi, Katonga. Another good set of points there. So pre-game, I sort of tipped Iyongi and Barlaw to be potential best on field contenders 60s, and I think they're up there for sure as reflected in the points. I'm just trying to think. 3 try assists for Ice. He did so much good. I also don't want to undersell Zach Lomax backing up from State of Origin 60s in a very physical game on Wednesday night.
This is not an easy 3-2-1. No. It is not an easy 3-2-1.
The big man Junior having such a great game. Gideon having a great game. I'll keep it straightforward. You talk about Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown being out and needing a difference maker, and it's unfair because Dally M's and 3-2-1s, they lean themselves so much towards your playmakers and the guys that get their hands on the ball in the key moments, but that's football, isn't it? And I think that Izara Iyongi was the difference here for the Parramatta Eels. Some really crucial touches. There was, a couple of errors. There was one kick where it was just he was always going to drop a kick down the left edge. Or their left edge, our right edge. But, yeah, he continues to develop himself. He's a player that the other players are really talking about in their media exchanges. So you can tell the other teammates are really starting to look to him for the big plays. And I think that today, no Moses, no Brown, he did stand up.
Yes. Okay. I'll let you finish your 2-1,
oh,
John.
You dirty cheater. You rat bastard. Look, I'm going to stick true. Junior Barlaw was the other player I nominated for best on field prior to the game starting. He was the forward that I thought stood up in the middle. And then the 1 point, well, as they said in chat, any number of players, Footy Dean, Adokar, Will Penasini, his best game of the season. I didn't see any votes, but he's right up there. We got Jack Williams. I'll say Josh Adokar, just because 220 metres on the back of just industrious work in some really difficult moments of the Eels. That's what we expect from Zach Lomax. But Josh Adokar delivered that plus today. So, and a fair shout out there to guys like Lomax and the Footy Dean that I didn't give points to. But them's the breaks in a very tough field.
Well, John, I selected Isaiah Iyongi in the preview as I went for him for both first
FTS, best on field,
and best on field. So I have to stick with him just in a photo finish for best on field with Junior Barlow. I mentioned Junior before. I thought that long first stint was outstanding.
Super impressive. Like how fit is the guy post 30 now? Probably our fittest forward, like pound for pound, kilo for kilo. And that is so impressive.
Absolutely. It was hard to ignore both efforts and performances. Listening to a little bit in the car coming back from the ground, the commentators were waxing lyrical about Isaiah Iongi, and they were just saying what an impressive player he is. They were talking about that tough decision that the Eels made around Gutho, and that Iongi just continues to prove that the right rein was pulled in, I guess, moving Gutho on. Although, as has been mentioned, he was the original plan was that he was going to play a Dylan Walker type role. He didn't want to play a Dylan Walker type role, so we ended up with the real Dylan Walker.
Isn't it funny how those things work out when you're sort of like, here's the prototype blueprint for you to play as. This is our vision we're trying to sell you. Okay, you don't want to do it. Okay, we'll part ways. Oh, Dylan Walker's now a Parramatta Eel. How sweet. So, he was a player we didn't even talk about in the best on field. Just, I suppose that's now the standard for him, isn't it? That he comes on, just makes that difference for the middle. And it wasn't his flashiest game, but Dylan Walker was definitely a plus contributor tonight. And, yeah, what a pickup. And I know that recruitment retention of being shelled here and there, but that is one of the smartest mid-season pickups I've seen in quite a while. He has been transformative for this team. Yeah.
So, last one for the 1 point. Man, this is a tough choice because there are so many people.
Lomax, Penasini, Russell, Addo-Carr, Dean Hawkins, Jack Williams, Gideon Katonga, Jermaine Hopgood, who had a solid game. You're good luck, mate.
You've saved me listing off all of those players, and I've talked about quite a number of them and their contributions in the game. I have to go. You didn't go this way, but I have to go this way with Zach Lomax because I felt there were so many moments in the game where he was instrumental and important. And
the goal kicking too.
I can't ignore what he was able to provide. I feel like there should have been a second forward that I nominated, but so much of his work was almost like a second forward. Like another forward out there, just because he plays such a physical game. And I was hoping at the end that he was going to have a crack at the long distance field goal, a 2-point field goal, because
he split the tiebreaker of South Sydney.
Yeah, and he moved into the centre of the field. I don't know if people noticed that on the coverage, but it certainly was the case at the game as it was coming into those closing seconds, and Parramatta just moved past halfway. He came in to the centre field, just hanging around behind the ruck, and I thought he's going to have a crack. But time ran out, so he didn't get to have that shot. But it would have been a good way for things to finish there. A couple of questions I want to finish on, John. First of all, Joash Papali as a 5'8". Did we see enough today to say, Joash is perhaps the direction we want to go in as a 5'8"?
I think we saw enough. Again, like I said, I praise him for not trying to force his hand and not overplaying and feeling that desperate need to impress Jason Ryles in that first chance he gets at 5'8". I think we saw enough to suggest that there is something there. I don't know if it means that he's the guy or the lead candidate, but he's certainly going to be a legitimate candidate. I think, bearing in mind that he's doing this with Footy Dean and not Mitchell Moses, and Dean Hawkins' great game, but he's not Mitchell Moses. And the way you structure your game plan around the rest of the team changes when it's Dean Hawkins at 7 and not Mitchell Moses. We saw Dylan Walker and Junior Barlow do a lot of playmaking in the absence of Moses to help facilitate midfield opportunities. But, I think that he is now properly a contender. But I'm a long way from crowning him as the guy at number 6.
Yes. Now, the other question mark is we saw Joey Lussick get some more game time at dummy half than Riley Smith. Now, in terms of that more game time, it was likely because of that injury towards the end for Riley Smith. I'm assuming that Riley would have finished. I'm assuming Riley would have finished the game were it not for that laceration on the knee.
I think the splits would have been about 34-46, I think, to Riley.
Yes.
If he hadn't had that laceration. But, yeah, that obviously skewed it with the cut. Yeah, look, I thought that Lussick was very good early on. Obviously scored the try, was heavily involved, good service. I am a bit critical of him because of the lapse leading to the Chris Randall try, I think it was, where I felt like he put his hands up like he was saying I wasn't sure if he was saying I'm impeded, which he wasn't, or he was caught out offside saying I'm not making the tackle. If he was caught out, you got to make the tackle, mate. Give away the penalty. But yeah, by and large, I think that was a good performance from him.
Yeah, and given there was less minutes that Riley got to play today, I thought his contribution was still quite high. I think he made 28 tackles in, I think it was 35 minutes, something like that. Which, if I'm right with that, that's phenomenal tackles per minute in the context of what it could have been in a full game, but. Is he in any trouble? Because he was put on report, wasn't he, for the lift?
Yeah. Oh, God, there wasn't much in that one. I thought it was penalty sufficient, barely being put on report. But like I said, once you invoke the MRC, it becomes a crapshoot.
And we know how Parramatta players are dealt with in these circumstances. So, look, I hope that he's not under any pressure there from the that he's not given a suspension of any sort. Like you, I thought Joey Lussick did okay. I thought he had quite a solid performance, and it's good to know that were anything to happen to Riley, like for example, who knows, that laceration might be too deep for a 6-day turnaround.
He was grimacing pretty badly on the sideline, and he was really trying to push through it for a good period. They obviously did some patchwork on the fly, but yeah, mate, if you get a deep cut on that spot because of the way the leg functions,
the bending,
it could consistently open up. So that is definitely something to monitor through the week. I would expect at the very minimum, Joey Lussick is going to be named in the team list Tuesday 22, and if he can't go, if he being Riley can't go. You might end up seeing, I suppose, Brendan Hands back in first grade.
Well, perhaps that's going to be the case. John, what was that question that we were going to?
Ben and Fletch there. Fletch in the pilot seat there for the chat. He's feeling a little bit bullish about maybe going on a bit of a run a la 2009. And it was, where was your question, Ben? Fletch, sorry. It's Ben in chat, but Fletch, where did it go? Thoughts on
Fletch wasn't even born in that run in 2000.
Thoughts on an 09 style grand final run this year? I'm just saying it's a possibility. I like the optimism. And,
yes.
I know we joke about being unicorns and being too optimistic, but it comes back to that idea that you floated before, Sixties, that 2 or 3, not just games, but plays in games completely change the complexion of our ladder seating. We could easily be deep inside the top. I say deep. You'd be deep, but also shallow because of how the rest of the ladder sort of is floating right now. But you could be right in the mix of the finals. And all it takes is a couple of games strung together and you're putting yourself back in the thick of the mix. So, yeah, 09 is such a insane hot streak to try and emulate. And I'm not sure if we'll get there 60s because while Iyongi is a hell of a young talent, he's not prime Jared Hayne, at least not yet. Maybe he can get there if we're very lucky. But, yeah, there's no reason to think we can't get back into the genuine competition for the top 8 and really make some noise. Josh pointing out there is a certain player in Ron Massey who could help us with that.
John, it's this game against the Dragons next up is really critical because if we can jag that and then we go into the bye, we've we can go buy, win, buy.
Yeah, 8 points banked.
And then you're looking at the likes of Moses being back.
Sam Tuivasa, Bowie Simonson, they're all in that sort of round 19 to 20 cluster, aren't they? Who else was there that were due back? Where's our injury report gone? Here it is. So you get looking at Luca Moretti. That's a handy player. Mitchell Moses, Luca Moretti, Bowie Simonson, Sam Tuivasa. Not sure what the goal was of Ryan Madison. That's a spinal injury. That could be a season ender. Who knows? But you also get back at some point, hopefully, Richard Penasini. He's got a hand injury. I know it's not a frontline player there, but more depth. And then a young player in Will Latu who could be a feature at some point later in the season if there are requirements for depth players in the back row. So, yeah, getting past this Dragons game is huge, 60. So it is massive. Get that win, and you get a huge amount of reinforcements back on the horizon.
And finally, we should mention, unfortunately, we had 3 losses yesterday. We had the Jersey Flegg went down in their clash with the Newcastle Knights.
Too many errors. Far too many errors. It's been a trend in the last couple of weeks, and it's something that Rankin and the boys really need to get on top of, because talent-wise, the squad's killing it. Like, they're still playing good football in passages, but spotting their opposition way too many chances. And it's bad enough in first grade when we see it happen, but in Flegg and Cup, and Flegg in particular, the game spirals so quickly, 60s. And against the Warriors and against the Knights, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, and then we saw the women's trials, the Harvey Norman team just weren't in the hunt against the Bulldogs. Very young squad, you're saying to me. We put a lot of Tarsha Gale adjacent players, it seems, into that squad against the more seasoned Bulldogs team, even though they're in a local club. And then really good contest in the NRLW trial. A few players rested by the Eels. You basically had a couple of key forwards that were rested. Mahalia Murphy was rested. Kennedy Cherrington was rested. It was a game where I think it ended up 4 tries apiece. It was and you said goal kicking was the difference, yeah.
Yeah. The Dogs got their tries a lot closer to the posts, and I think Rachel Pearson kicked one from the sideline, which was enormous, but it just ended up being the main difference between the teams. And what I said today when we were at the club was that I was really encouraged after an early error by the efforts of Martha Matteelli. It was just like she's going to be hard for opponents to handle out on the wing. If that ends up being her spot, she was taking a lot of effort to be brought down. So that was 24-18 in that one. And then, of course, New South Wales Cup today, the Eels prevailed in spite of the fact that there's so many players that were missing.
Talk about gutsy efforts. They did a really good job here, 60s. Spearheaded by a young half. I was just talking about young halves in the chat. Joel Giusti was asking when Lincoln Fletcher gets a chance in Flegg, which I think is a fair question. I think that hopefully he can get a look in soon. But part of the reason why he hasn't...
It might have to do with...
schoolboy commitments, maybe?
Is he still at school?
Yeah.
On the schools?
Because he's a first-year ball player under 17, right? So
he's 18 this year.
Oh, sorry, 18 this
first
year.
First-year ball player.
Yeah, first-year ball player. So he's likely graduating from school end of year. Not to say he couldn't be a year advanced. Sometimes that happens. But he might have school commitments. And if that's the case, the not just the Eels, clubs in general generally have a give-and-take relationship with schools when it comes to this sort of stuff between academics and also their school sporting commitments with the carnivals and intra-school stuff. Jeez. He might become available later in the season if that's the case. But we are sort of talking about a hypothetical here. But, yeah, the tangent to all this was Matthew Hunter, another young half 60s, who's having himself getting close to a whale of a season now. He was instrumental today in the comeback, had a really good game at 6. But, across the park, Eels, again, just playing tough football, mate. They had reason to roll over here. Got down to an early deficit. I think they were down, was it 16-6 at one point? And
I believe so. We were doing the podcast,
the pre-game at I keep wanting to say Jack's, but it was Sterlo's.
Yes. So we missed most of that. But, John, any final comments now from...
there was a question from, I think it was Gallagher, talking about, are we expecting any June 30 acquisitions? We spoke with Jim Sarantinos, obviously, on Tuesday. He alluded to the fact that the club has been busy behind the scenes. Couldn't disclose whether we were close to getting an acquisition 60s, but anything you're hearing, are we potentially going to tack onto the roster?
Look, I don't think I can add on anything more than that, because my mail since then is pretty much the same, that they're working hard to get a signing done before June 30. And, of course, if that doesn't eventuate, then they will have to look at upgrading someone, because they have one spot that must be filled. So it's not even a question of will they, it will be either they're going to bring someone in or someone's about to be upgraded, because it has to happen. So, but yeah, I think that's about it.
There was some people, some comments sort of upset about our terrible injury luck, which I definitely sympathise with. That resonates in the very the bones. I can't think. Look, South Sydney are doing it tough this year for injuries as well, but year for year since we made the grand final, it feels like we have been the most cursed club when it comes to bad suspensions or unfortunate suspensions and bad injuries. And yeah, look, it really does
to key people,
to key personnel. Like you look at Mitchell Moses' playing history prior to the last 2 years, he has been really good for 20 plus game seasons, and he's just fallen off a cliff recently with those calf injuries, and he's not alone in that regard. But
so last year, I think Mitch played 8, missed 16.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know what we're heading for at this stage, but it's probably not going to end up being a hell of a lot better this year, because I'm just trying to think how many games he has played, because what did he miss about the first, was it 9 games of the season?
Yeah.
So, and now he's about to miss another 3. So what are we, we're going to be
rough. It's been rough, mate. And
theoretically talking. And I think he missed the game. He had to stand down because of the first Origin, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah,
so he had to miss the game because
that's where Dean Hawkins started against Manly, right?
Yeah. So I'm thinking he's going to end up at bare minimum missing somewhere between 9 and 13 games this season.
James, the semis of 22 were the last time we were full strength. I think you're actually spot on about that. Since going into the grand final, we were not full strength and haven't been since. So crazy. Chat mentioning that there's some talk about Talon Silva and Stafford Toa. We've certainly heard about the Stafford Toa chatter recently. 60s, pretty handy centre. Be a good competitor for spots in the back line.
Yeah.
And Talon Silva, very talented young dummy half. Contemporary of Matthew Arthur, of course, across the various rep squads through the recent seasons.
My mail was he was quite keen on coming across Talon, but
yeah, I mean, if he's happy to play as part of a battery with Riley Smith, that'd be a great 1-2 combination there. Riley being the workhorse and Talon being the more dynamic attacking threat.
But that mail was at the same time as what was happening with Lockie Galvin as well, because I think they're close. There's a number of
if he ends up at the Bulldogs, mate, I will be very upset. I don't mind if he doesn't sign with Parramatta, but if they pull that off, Jeff Tuvey might have a line that's been used on the podcast.
Well, John, very well done tonight. Thank you also for earlier today for the appearance at the club. Thank you to our sponsors, Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, and to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta, the OG sponsors that we have. Thank you to everyone who's been in chat tonight, watching live. Thank you to everyone that ends up listening across the various platforms. Don't forget, whatever platform you're on, give it a like and subscribe. Now, we're sort of edging up towards 600 subscribers on YouTube, getting around about that 1,000 views with some of our podcasts. So
116 concurrent viewers as well. So great instant reaction turn up as well, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd love to get towards 1,000 subscribers. So that people who are watching are also subscribers. So if you haven't, please give it a subscribe and a like. That would be much appreciated. Thank you to everyone, of course, again, that comes up and takes the time to say hello, because it means a lot to John and I. It really gives us, makes us feel like, we've got that connection to our community of Eels supporters out there. John, only one thing to say, because we got that win today. We got that great win today. Well, we got a good win today anyway. Maybe not a great one. Go, you mighty Eels.
Well said, mate. Catch you guys in the next episode.